for that song.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I didn't ask for it, but they just did that. You know what I'm saying?
So when
Because they
does
knew
it go from give me the money to just maybe a shout out, a tribute,
that's a good question. I feel like I'm at the point I'm at in my career. I want the bread. Like
Right.
if you pay me, you get me to produce some, or you using my music, let's go. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Right.
I'm fair though, and I'm not unnecessarily greedy, but I feel I want to get what I deserve. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I work hard, to contribute to the culture, to make the music I've made over the years. And if someone is benefiting from it financially, especially on a large scale,
Right.
hypothetically, if it's something independent or underground and I don't have any expectations and there's no major distribution involved, I'm not going to beat you in the head. I'm not going to ask for nothing. I'm not going
Right.
to chase you for it either. You know,
Right.
that's just paying it forward in hip hop, like what I've like mentioned I did for KRS.
Mm.
But in that case, Nas is a major artist and Columbia is a major label, so they had to clear that. You dig what I'm
Right.
saying?
Makes
I
sense.
didn't have to do it; they
Right.
did it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So,
Makes sense. Before we talk about your and AZ's relationship, during this time, the early '90s up until say this point, Stillmatic, what kind of moves are you making outside of producing, as far as forming businesses or
oh
any
wow,
endeavors that you were doing during?
very good question. I was kind of in that transition probably by the time after I did Stillmatic, where I wasn't just thinking about producing. I wanted to get into marketing. I wanted to understand distribution. I wanted to understand, uh, you know, publishing deals and things like that. And I wanted to also understand being on the road and dealing with, concerts and tours. And, I've played a couple of different roles throughout my career at different points in time. So I'm glad you paid attention to that because I've done road managing, I've done A&R, I've done, marketing consultation. I've done it all. And I got paid to do it. I
Right.
don't always broadcast that part of my business in the public space because people just know me as the producer. So I just let it be. I just do what I do. And when people come across me and need help and want certain services, I let them know if I can provide it or not. And if I can provide it, I charge them accordingly, you
Right.
know? But I think by the time I started working with AZ, because AZ, I started working with right after Stillmatic around 2002. I did the song with him and Nas called The Essence, which ended up becoming Grammy nominated that year for Best Rap Performance by a Duo Group. And we lost to Outkast, who understandably was on fire back then.
Right.
But after AZ did that album on Motown, which was his last album on Motown, then he went independent. I started doing a lot of work with him when he went to Koch Records. And that's how I started really getting more into the business side along with contributing music. So when I say that, I was doing production, but I was also A&R consulting. I was bringing other producers in. I was overseeing the records. I was mixing the records for the producers. I was dealing with the admin, clearing samples, clearing artist features, doing all of the administrative work that labels would do. And I did that to support what A was doing because he was still figuring out how to be independent after leaving Motown. You get if you pay attention to AZ's career, most of his career that people know him to this day from was when he was on majors. He had to work to maintain his audience independently over the years, even to now, because he's independent. You know what I mean? But uh, yeah, I really started focusing more on the business side along with production, and it's a hard balance because as a creative, you have to wear multiple hats. You're making music, then you have to put that to the side and handle the business. Then you have to put the business to the side and come back to the creative. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's hard to wear all those hats because you need to be on point. When you're creating, you just need to be in that zone to create. When you're doing business, you got to be sharp and dealing with people and numbers and communication and admin and emails and all that type of stuff.
Right.
You know,
You mentioned AZ. You guys have a working relationship of well over 20 years. What is
yeah.
it about AZ that you guys keep reconnecting on projects?
I'm gonna attribute it to him, and I'm gonna attribute it to one of my mentors, Damian Blyden, aka Dio. Dio was AZ's manager when I first started working with him. Rest in peace to Heavy D. He was one of Heavy D's managers too before he started managing AZ. And By the time we worked on Motown, on the Asiatic album, The Essence, that's when we started building a relationship, and there was a respect level to my work, to the point that when he went independent, I was probably one of the first producers he called, like, "Yo, I'm about to start a new album, blah 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 blah. I need you," that kind of thing. So we actually did 2 or 3 projects together, back to back, over a course of a few years. Uh, we originally did an album called The Final Call. That was supposed to be the first album we did after Motown, after Asiatic, but Koch felt like it was too commercial musically. I deal with this all the time. But then when I make underground records, I need it to be more commercial. It's like, make up your fucking mind. So I executive produced that whole Final Call album. I produced a few records on there, and then I oversaw production from a few other producers on there. And I remember Primo got on there too. He did Magic Hour with CL Smooth, and we mixed the whole album together, and we turned it in to Koch, and they felt like it had too much mainstream type of sounding music. There's a Latin track that had Tony Sunshine from Terror Squad on there. I did a track called "You Know" featuring Ralph, formerly of Rockefeller, the singer. It was fire too. These are records with the goal of trying to win, even if we were independent. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's what we're used to, making good records. But there was just like, for their reach, in terms of marketing and their budget, they didn't have the kind of resources at that time to push those type of records on a certain level to compete with the Def Jams and the Sonys and the so on. So they asked them to do another album. It went through a little bit of debating, money, conversations, and they worked something out, gave them another budget, and then we did AWOL. AWOL was the independent album to make up for the fact that they pulled Final Call. They put it out later,
Mm.
just threw it out, no marketing. But AWOL was made as a substitution for Final Call. You know what I mean? And it did well for him at that time. But again, he was still learning how to be independent. And that album was more street. It was more grassroots sounding, in terms of the hip hop production and the subject matter and the lyrics. If you notice on the cover art, he's wearing fatigues like I'm wearing right now. You know what I mean? He was just taking it to the streets, and it worked for that time for him. And I think he learned his lesson from that, because after that, he tried to do a little bit of a hybrid of street music with something that you could market on a bigger scale, and that was the Undeniable album.
Mm.
Remember, that was a cover art with the blue on.
Yep.
I had Little Fame from MOP, who was into making beats at the time. I brought him in to do something on there. I brought in the Mill, formerly a Rockefeller, on there. I was literally airing on all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah. It's crazy because you got me thinking back all the shit I did,
That's
bro.
what
That
you do.
people don't know about, bro. It's crazy.
Yeah, no doubt.
Wow. Yeah.
Speaking of a full circle moment, you remember Large Pro being in the studio back in the days, creating classics to reuniting with Main Source. You were part of that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, for sure, man. Oh man, that was a crazy time. Shout out to K Cut and Lost Professor. This is around the idea to even do the reunion and everything that was involved with the 25th anniversary of Main Source's Break It Adams album. It was around 2016. I was out in Canada making my rounds, networking, because I knew Drake was on fire and I just wanted to tap in. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, yo, I'm coming to Canada. I want to see what's going on. I want to hit the club. I want whatever, you know what I'm saying? And I caught up with K Cut. We hung out. Then I think Tribe had put out an anniversary of their first album, People's Instinctive Travels. So I said to K Cut, yo, what are y'all doing about the anniversary of Breaking Out? Y'all got to do something, man. The album is a classic. What are y'all doing? He's like, I don't know, straight Scooby Doo. You know what I mean? And I said, listen, we're gonna trace back the rights of the masters to Wild Pitch, which was the label that put out Main Source, and Gangstar, and the list goes on. And we're gonna figure this out, man. So I was just, adamant about doing something to celebrate Main Source, because they were my inspiration. Like I said to you earlier, Large Pro, meeting Large Pro at the beginning, those are the people that made me want to make records. So I got in touch with like K Cut got in touch with his family. We got in touch with Stu Fine. bounced it over to who was currently distributing the masters at the time. I think it was over Universal. We worked some stuff out with them, and then ironically, we were contacted by a vinyl curating company called Vinyl Me Please. I think they're located in Colorado,
Hmm.
and they reached out around this time. Like we didn't go to them; they came to us. Somehow they figured it out. They was like, "Listen, we're a curating company. We release classic albums or vinyl. We just discovered this main source album that Nas was on earlier in his career. We would love to offer to distribute and re-release it." Literally, that's how it happened. And me and Kev was like, "Wow, this is crazy," because we were trying to figure it out with Universal for the digital rights and all that. So we said, "Let's do it." So we worked out the paperwork, did the vinyl deal. I reached out to Large Pro, made sure everybody was on the same page, make sure everybody got paid. So we was able to roll out a reissued version of the first album, colored vinyl, bonus images, a couple of bonus tracks that was unreleased, if I'm not mistaken, lyric sheet, all of that. And the vinyl company was so excited, they was like, "Listen, to add to this rollout, what do y'all think about them doing a reunion concert? You think they'll be into that?" They asked me. And I said, "I can ask. That'd be dope." He said, "We'll pay for everything." So they paid for SOBs to be secured as the venue, uh, paid the group, the main source of performing, and they also agreed to let Mass Appeal film content at the venue of the show, as well as behind the scenes, all that. So you might, if you find any footage on the internet or YouTube, you might see me sitting in the background just chilling, not
Right.
saying nothing, not being Baby Paul, a producer in the midst of all this. You know what I'm saying? And shout out to Just Blaze because we booked Just Blaze to be the resident DJ. He DJ'd that night. Um, and Master P filmed it. And then I found out later that the reason why Master P was filming is because they wanted to get content for a docu series they were coming out with called Rapture, and it was Just Blaze's episode,
Mm,
right? So
right.
if you look it up on Netflix, Rapture, that docu series,
Hmm.
the Just Blaze episode has the main source reunion concert at SOBs in there, and you'll see me. You blink, you'll miss me, but I'm in there.
Is there
I,
any
and it's crazy. I had a big hand in putting that whole thing together.
is there any
You know.
background maybe you can speak on? Was Sir Scratch not with the idea or just busy at the time?
Uh, well, it's a family thing.
Hmm.
That's all I say. Like Kev, K Cut, and Sir Scratch, they still have their brother relationship, but on the business side of music, it's like Sir Scratch chose to fall back. But he took some checks though, meaning that whatever business we were doing
Right.
for the group, he got his percentage because he was a part of the original album. In all fairness, so
Right.
Kev made sure of that. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? And the ironic thing is, we did the reunion concert in the SOBs. It was a success. It was sold out. So many legends was in the building. People I hadn't seen in years was in the building. Everybody, you name them, Juju, Beat Nuts, Pete Rock, Buck Wild, Dime. I don't know. Was Diamond there? I don't know if Diamond was there. Lost Finesse, Pharaoh Mines, Royal Flush, Mike Geronimo. Like the list goes on, man. Just a lot of Queens was in the building. Cheeks, Lost Boys. It was dope.
Right.
So it was a great moment for hip hop. It was a great moment for me because I know without the public knowledge of what I did and how I pushed to make it happen, just to see the fruition, of everything come about. It was just for me, it was a gratification, paying it forward to cats I feel are unsung heroes and my heroes in hip hop, And what you call it? If I'm not mistaken, I remember Lars came up to me one day, not one day, excuse me, that day at the show, somewhere behind the scenes, something. He's like, "Yo, thank you." He was like, "Is there anything I could do for you?" And I just said, "Yo, this happening is my thank you." You know what I'm saying? I'm just happy to see y'all, get y'all flowers. You know what I mean?